Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
This is the podcast you've been waiting for. The ex-French horses who are on their way to dominate for the new season. We are, of course, joined by Total Performance Data's Adam Mills, one of the best in the business when it comes to racing, but the absolute best in the business when it comes to unearthing these national hunt gems for jumps racing. And after that build-up, you can't possibly go wrong. Welcome back to the show, Adam.
Thanks, Emmett. Glad to be back here for another year. Have another go. Talking about the day job here, looking at the French three-year-olds. It's kind of we've had one or two that have run and one or two that have won on this recruits list. And once that starts, you think, okay, come on then, let's get a pecking order together. Before
we start talking about these horses, and there's a lot from the Willie Mullins team, the horses that have shown that little bit of promise in France, over the years, you've been very good at refining which of these horses you think are going to be actually able to make the step up from France to Ireland and the UK and different styles of racing in Britain and Ireland. What are you looking out for this time around?
The first thing to say about this year is it's a record number. I always kind of cut my list off on the 1st of November. I say, right, once I get to the 1st of November, then we'll start. That's next season as far as I'm concerned. You've got to draw a line somewhere. Got to 75 this year, added a couple more in on the 3rd of November when I found where they'd gone. I thought, okay, we'll put them in just in case. So there's a huge number, but there's also a lot of gambling going on. And what I mean by gambling is we've got 20-odd three-year-olds who've had one run in France and been sold. Although there's loads of potential, and there are certain yards that we all know that do really well with their French recruits, there's also a huge number of agents and a huge number of trainers, owners, buyers who've looked at one piece of form and spent six figures in the hope that that piece of form translates. Now, if you go back 15, 20 years ago, the likes of Courtauld Star, for example, probably a slight outlier, but 10 runs in France, long run, whole season in France before he was sold. Those days are gone. You can't do that anymore. You can't afford to say, I'm going to sit on this horse and see how he does on his second and third starts. Because you might sit on that form, someone else will go in. They'll go in and buy. And you can see, if you're ever lucky enough to go to Auteuil, it's like jump racing, but it's so different because there's fewer people there. But one thing you'll notice is if you watch a 3-year-old hurdle at Auteuil, the number of people in the paddock, around the paddock, with notepads, with phones to their ears, as these horses cross the line, deals are being done. People are trying to get the deal done before the horse is even back in the stabling yard. And so when you've got that, you now have a situation where we're not only having to assess the French form, but you're having to look at it and look so deep to try and think, right, is that going to make up to it? Now, look, I made an absolute tit of myself 12 months ago. I did it on this show. I did it on social media. I came in and I went, don't worry about Willie the Hall. Lamp on, son. He'll be 6-4 on the day you'll thank me. Deary me. And that has really taught me a lesson. That really taught me a lesson of actually, no, everything about Willie the Hall was right. His form was with Nicky Henderson. Nicky Henderson won the juvenile finale at Chepstow by half the track, has gone off the stud. Everything else that he ran against, the race form he ran in the spring really worked out. Arnold Shy was champion trainer, had one of the best seasons he's ever had. Everything about Willie the Hall said he should be the Triumph winner. But what I failed to realise, it was really only when I looked back over this summer, and I looked back and went, actually, you're wrong. Everyone now is buying horses after 1-2 runs at the most. So if people who are professionals in the industry buying horses for large sums of money are having to make educated guesses, how can you sit there after one run and say, that should win the Triumph? And the good news is I've narrowed this year's Triumph down to about 25. 2 or 3 that I think won't win, but I got it down to about that. But that is it. If you said to Willie Mullins right now, show me your Triumph hurdle winner, he'd probably say, there's 12 horses in that field over there. It'll be one of them. And that's how hard the job has become, that you have to really study this form. It's not like the old days. It isn't a case there'll be 1 or 2. We could have a 20-runner Triumph with horses that have cost over 100,000 each. There's an insane amount of money being spent on potential. And for every Madgeborough, Lossiemouth, Calixios that come over and win it, unfortunately, there will be a Willie the Hall, a Stormheart, a Bunting. Big horses, big reputations, best yard in the business, but not all of them will be superstars. And it's trying to kind of put them in an order as to, right, where are the ones that are Triumph hurdle bound? Where are the ones that will be lucky to win a maiden hurdle? And you've got to try and fit between the two.
Adam Mills is never wrong. But he was mistaken about
Oh, he
Willie de
is,
Hooley.
yeah.
Just you were just mistaken. That's all.
I was, but let's be fair. You gave me the big up and said, on the first show I ever did, which is true. The first show I said to you, Gino will beat Burdett Road in favour for the Triumph, and Cargeese will win the Spring Juvenile. Avid viewers of that will also look back at that video and say, well, he said Majborough could win the Triumph, but he said Majborough could also end the season with Ben Haslam, and that the result would be somewhere between the two. Now, I was right. He did win the Triumph. He's not ended up with Ben Haslam. We were right there. But that shows you, it's just, you can't do anything more than have an educated guess. And I can sit here and I watch every 3-year-old hurdle in France. There were 2 at Compiegne today. Watched them both live. I've already watched them back twice. Done my handwritten notes. I'll type it all up tomorrow. I can have loads of opinions on that, but someone else might watch it and go, no, I don't agree with that. And they might buy a horse out of that race for a completely different opinion to mine. So it is very difficult, but hopefully in the next hour or so, we can kind of at least say, get it down to about 7 or 8 names that are the ones to be really excited.
There is a juvenile hurdler on this list with Ben Haslam already, by the way. So spoiler alert for a JP horse to come. We're going to start with the Willie Mullins horses because, well, he is the place to go. And ironically enough, when you were saying Willie Mullins could point at 12 horses in the field, I wonder if this time last year, one of those 12 horses would have been the ex-flat horse Poneros, who doesn't come from the French graduation. So it is a very, very difficult thing to be able to get your head around. And well, given what Ethical Diamond did, maybe horses like Poneros will be given a completely different career trajectory now for Willie Mullins as he decides to target the Breeders' Cup from now on. This episode, before we get into that though, is brought to you by 1xBet. More than 7,000 events for you to get stuck into every single day on the 1xBet.ie website in Ireland, and loads of new customer sign-up specials as well. The link to 1xBet is in the episode description on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all podcast apps. You can just click the link there. It'll take you right to 1xBet in Ireland. Terms and conditions apply. Obviously, 18 plus. Gamble responsibly. Your game, your odds, your 1xBet. We're going to be handing tickets to 1xBet's official betting partner, Paris Saint-Germain, the European champions. Somebody at Daniel McLaughlin's stable is off to go see Paris Saint-Germain against Tottenham, so we're off to the Curragh tomorrow to do that. Well done to Danny McLaughlin, winner of the 1xBet series. 10 races. He won 2 of them with the same horse, Scissor G, who was tipped on this podcast by Peter Michael at 12-1. Anyway, first of the Willie Mullins 3-year-olds to follow is Kai Lung. Willie Mullins has struck gold with the progeny of Galloway. That's Galloway Racing Post, not Galway. You sent me down a 10-minute rabbit hole trying to figure out, hey, have we found another sire, the style of Timios that no one talks about? You literally click this horse's profile, Galway comes up. 1991, that horse ran in Châtillon. That's how I know that. The horse is by Galloway. Thank you, Pedigree Query, for coming to the rescue. Galloway, Willie Mullins has had success with Vauban, Jimmy DeSoy, and Galler Marceau. This horse is going to wear the Lecky Watson silks. But why is he made your list, Adam?
Well, he's made my list firstly because this is an example of how hard Willie Mullins' team work. This lad didn't run at Auteuil. He didn't run at Paris Longchamp. He didn't run at Chantilly. He didn't run at Compiegne. I haven't seen him in the north at all. Made his debut at Bordeaux. He's run on the all-weather at Pau. He's run at Tarbes, which is a beautiful track down near the Pyrenees, but you don't get too many superstars running at Tarbes. He's actually had 6 starts on the flat. If you look on some British sites, it'll only show 1 or 2, but he's had 6. Did manage to win a maiden over 7.5 furlongs. The pedigree's really interesting. We'll come to Galloway in a minute, but he's actually out of a mare called Panda Queen who reached the kind of peak rating in the mid-60s on the flat. She's nothing particularly special, but if you go back a further generation, she is a half-sister to a US Grade 3 place sprinter called Nimbo Stratus. There's a lot of speed in this pedigree. But what I wanted to highlight, he says he had 6 runs on the flat. The French handicapper says his flat rating is 37.5 kilos. That's the equivalent of 82, 83. Quite a talented flat horse. Last run was at Tarbes behind a horse called Maneki of Jean-Claude Rouget's, who's a decent 90 rating kind of performer. Only beaten a length and a half, just lacked a little bit of speed. I think going up in triple help. Kai Lung is definitely going to be a dual-purpose horse. Definitely dual purpose. I think there are races to exploit in both codes, but he's by Galloway. Now, Galloway is best known for being the sire of Seeley-Way. But if you look at Galloway and you look at Willie Mullins, Vauban, Gala Marceau, Jimmy DeSoy, they like Galloways. They do really well with Galloways. I think Kai Lung is the kind of horse who will travel really well. I think he'll be really suited by the way 3-year-old hurdle races can develop. In terms of the first mile is quite slow and then it develops into a bit of a pace. I think that'll really suit. Now, whether he's good enough to make up into a Triumph Hurdle horse or into a horse for the Boodles or the JM Wine or whatever that race is called now, I'm not really sure. Winter. Yeah, the Fred Winter. Can he jump a hurdle? No one knows. But I thought it was interesting that they went out and got this horse from relatively left field. Francois Rojo to Willie Mullins wouldn't be the normal kind of trainer transfer I'd look at. But this is the kind of horse that I think might have a couple of runs over hurdles. If it doesn't work, you might see him have a break and come back next summer. But I think Kai Lung is capable of making up into a 90 to 95 rated flat horse at least. If he's able to translate that over hurdles, that should at least be enough to be competitive in the 3-year-old hurdling scene. And just because he's by Galloway, I think he had to go on the list.
Okay. Am I right in thinking that Willie Mullins has such a stranglehold on the French horses, not just because they'll pay good money, but actually these French breeders and trainers actually want Willie Mullins training them because of his record of producing multiple Grade 1 performers, and they're going to have siblings to these horses still to come?
Yeah, I think that would definitely be true with certain yards. I also think it's very important to note that Willie's team don't really buy off the peg. It's quite rare that you'll see Willie go to a new trainer, buy a winner straight out of a race. There's a lot of background work goes on. There's a lot of connections that have been made. And he's built this network over 10, 15 years. Yeah. So they will do their due diligence. This isn't a case of just rocking up at the breeze ups and hoping for the best. There's real hard work done. And every single horse he's bought, they won't all be superstars, of course, but you can see the logic behind buying every horse. You can understand how they've looked at it, whether it's the pedigree, whether it's the form. Sometimes it's just the track, which we'll come to in a moment. There's one particular track that has a habit of throwing up good horses. And it's just that kind of approach. There's so much detail goes into their recruitment that it's almost hard for them not to be right every year because they're going to buy the right horses. And if you do that, that's half the job.
Okay, so 2 miles, 2 mile 2, horse who travels very strongly.
Yep.
Whether he can make up into a Triumph Hurdle horse remains to be seen. Maybe it could be a Fred Winter horse, but definitely Kai Lung goes onto the list. The next horse for Willie Mullins is Larinka, unbeaten French filly. She's by Martin Burris, so she's the same sire as Majborough, who obviously has done exceptionally well for Willie Mullins. Why is this horse on the list?
Well, she's on there primarily because I like the track. There's a track called Samoa. They race 3 times in March, 3 times in October. That's all they race every year. And Samoa hosts mixed cards that are PMH, so you won't find any of this form on at the races or anything like that. You can't bet on it unless you're on course. But I really like Samoa. And the reason I like it is because a couple of years ago, there was a horse called Impositoire, quite apt as he won at Aintree at the weekend. But he did a ridiculously fast speed figure in an AQPS race around here. And ever since, I've looked back at this, and Nicky Henderson went back there this year, went back to Samoa, bought another horse out of it. And I just really like the way Larinka did it. She beat a horse called Katie de Genevra's, who is the half-sister to Willie Mullins' Arkle winner, Duke de Genevra's. But as a 4-year-old, she beat the older horses, did it really well, made all. Now, it says good to soft ground. And off air, I sent Emmett a picture of the ground that day and went, that is good to soft. It wasn't good to soft. It was churned up. Part of the reason it's churned up is it's a mixed card. They have thoroughbred races and they also have trotting races on the same card. So if your AQPS race is run after the trotters and they're doing the Auteuil, then it just tears it up. The ground was pretty desperate. I think she'll be a soft ground filly, but I really liked how professional she was. It was a case of get me to the front. No matter what the ground is, I'll just keep galloping. I think she's going to make up into a really nice horse. In time, I think she could end up as a mare's hurdle horse, but it will be time. It'll be time. I'm not sure she's necessarily going to want rattling fast spring ground. So we might be a case that she needs a bit of mud, but I think she's really talented.
Okay, Larinka is very much on the list. The one that I'm arguably the most excited about, and I haven't really talked to you about this beforehand, is Narciso Has. I'm going to go with that pronunciation. Narciso Has. We've got the name on the episode description or on the visuals, I should say, on YouTube if you're watching. Willie Mullins has had Stateman, Sharjah, Dino Blue, Jade de Grugy, all by Dr. Dino, and this one's a Dr. Dino.
Yeah, he is. So let's first of all talk about the horse himself and think about Willie Mullins' Triumph Hurdle horses. Now, let's just pretend that Pony Ross didn't happen. I can go and cash in my Larinka.
Yes, please. Let's pretend that never happened.
It didn't happen. But if you think about the horses, the French horses in recent years that have won the Triumph, Quilixios, winner in France. Lossiemouth, winner in France. Vauban, winner on the flat in France. Madgeborough, winner in France. Cargis, winner in France. Gala Marceau, winner in France. Willie Mullins buys winners to go at the Triumph Hurdle with. He's not buying horses that are for 3 or 4 years down the line. He buys winners because he knows they know how to win. They're ready to go. We can campaign them for the Triumph. Narciso Has won the Pre-Wild Monarch. Why is the Pre-Wild Monarch important? The reason he's at the head of the market is because there was a tweet when he was purchased that said, "We've bought the horse that won the same race as Sir Gino. Therefore, in some weird world that 2 years later, that form would somehow be related." Now, it might be. Narciso Has cantered through that race. A little bit slow at his jumping, but it got better the more the pace lifted. He was absolutely in control in the last 20 yards and 1 ease down. The form's all right. There are a couple of winners in behind. It's nothing outstanding. If we look at the winners of the Pre-Wild Monarch, Sir Gino is clearly on the list. Paradiso's on there. He won a Grade 1, went off the stud. Bustleton of Joey O'Brien's. I can probably wedge that one in there. He won the race.
Good old cross-country.
But let's talk about the horses that didn't win the Pre-Wild Monarch. Salvatore Mundi's an obvious example. Kivala de Burlay's a Grade 1 French horse. Footpad, he ran in the Pre-Wild Monarch, didn't win it. Botox Has, Device, Gaelic Warrior, and a certain horse called State Man ran in the Pre-Wild Monarch and didn't win it. So whilst the Pre-Wild Monarch winner is clearly an obvious angle into it, and Narciso Has was miles better than this. He really cantered through it. He could be Sir Gino Mark II, but there's every chance that there are 3 or 4 in behind him who just weren't quite ready. The Pre-Wild Monarch is one of the premier debutante races in the Auteuil spring season. So everyone is there watching. Everyone is there hoping to see a superstar. He could be a superstar, and the likelihood is they've paid a very large sum to get him for JP Place. And I can completely understand why people would have him in as the Triumph Hurdle winner. But it's not as straightforward as just thinking this is Sir Gino Mark II. Sir Gino is the best winner of the Pre-Wild Monarch, in my opinion. I think Narciso Has was about 7 or 8 pounds below Sir Gino in the level of form that they both put up to win on debut. So Narciso Has at the moment must surely be campaigned as their number 1 juvenile until the form proves otherwise. But there are others that I think you can make a case for. Okay. And I would be of the opinion that the spring juvenile form is not as strong as the autumn's. Why? And the reason I think that, because the Grade 3 race on French Gold Cup Day in May was won by a horse called Leopard de Burlay for David Cottan on debut. He won a Grade 3 on debut and he battered everything else. He's since come out and won another Grade 3 in the autumn, and he's going to run in the Pre-Campus Series, which is the Grade 1 at Auteuil this weekend, the end of the 3-year-old season. He's probably going to be 2 to 5 to win that. Very nice horse. He's actually in the Triumph Hurdle market. If he came over, it'd be interesting. But when you get a newcomer winning a race like that, it makes you think, well, what's he? If things with experience can't lay a glove on him, Leopard de Burlay could be an absolute monster, or he could be a good horse running against inadequate ones. And the other thing to always bear in mind with French form is that so many of the 3-year-olds are sold that you end up with this really shallow pool. And so Narciso Has was, to my eye, was ridden like he was in the shop window. Prominent ride, travelling strongly, jumped the second last, came across, get the stands rail. Everything suggests to me that he was for sale. There are several others in behind that I thought, you're just not ready. You're running in this race in the hope that you might do something, but you're not ready. So this is the first example, really, of where we've got complete guesswork. This horse could win the Triumph Hurdle. Absolutely, he could win the Triumph Hurdle. He was really impressive. But how do you know? Because he was running in a field of debutantes and he was sold immediately afterwards. And there are loads of horses in Willie Mullins' stable with the exact same profile. Just because he won the Pre-Wild Monarch doesn't mean that he is the best.
Well, it was the Pre-Wild Monarch connection and also the fact that he's by the same sire as Sharjah, Dino Blue, Jay de Grugy, State Man. Like, that was the thing that really excited me, and the fact that the visual impression that day too. You're basically saying he could be, like, by the way, if you're 7 pounds off Sergino, that's all right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Don't right. think that's like, oh no.
That's okay.
I'll still take that.
We'll take that.
But if you took my interpretation literally, Salvatore Mundi was beaten about 3 lengths in that. So that would be me saying Narciso Has is not quite as good as Salvatore Mundi was on debut. So that puts another spin on it.
Yeah,
now, I could be wrong because I don't know, but that's just something to bear in mind. And what you'll see when he makes his debut, and if I worked for Racing TV, this is what I'd be doing if I was Gary O'Brien. The first line would be, here's Narciso Has, second in the betting for the Triumph Hurdle. He won the same race as Sergino. Click, 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 click all over Twitter. Because that's the way you've got to position it. But as we saw last year, being favoured for the Triumph Hurdle in October means that.
Yeah, it's never that simple. Rarely is it ever that simple. But hey, if you want to have a bet on the Triumph Hurdle and you're in Ireland, I've got good news for you. 1xBet, sponsor of the Final Furlong podcast, has more than 7,000 events for you to be betting on every single day. Crucially, super fast withdrawals and loads of new customer specials. To find out more, check out the website. The link is in the episode description on YouTube right now. You can just click that link. It'll take you right to the 1xBet Ireland website. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org. 1xBet knows the crack. Bet with your head, not above it. So don't go completely bananas with the current second favourite for the Triumph Hurdle with 1xBet, particularly seeing as, well, the line from Adam seems to be proceed with caution for all that he could be exceptionally talented. I like that horse. We'll find out more. This is the man who knows what's going on. Madness d'El for Willie Mullins. This is the first of the Rich Ritchie horses we're talking about?
It is, yes. First of the Rich Ritchies from Daniela Malay, who will be a recurring theme throughout the Willie Mullins recruits. Yep, third in the pre-Gemics, beaten 6 lengths by Shannon Maestro, who was placed in a listed race next time out. It's not bad form. I thought it was pretty steadily run. You know, she probably ran to a mark of about 115 or so. She was definitely going best between the last 2 hurdles. And she just, as she met the second last on the wrong stride, dragged her legs for it and just lost enough momentum. Then she picked up again, but she didn't quite have enough left. She struck me as the kind of filly who would improve massively for her debut run. I think she really is going to take a big step forwards. Now, she needs to, because there are others who've certainly improved more. Moises Has as a sire, I don't know. I don't mind him, but I think they often need soft ground. The Dam was nothing special at all, would have had a flat rating in the mid-50s to 60s at best. So you are scratching a little bit to try and find it. But the Dam is a half-sister to 8 winners. So there's a really good pedigree there. There's lots of nice horses without being a superstar. But she was on the list primarily just because I thought she ran like a horse who was going to improve £10 for the benefit of the experience. And the fact she ran in the spring meant they'll be able to give her a bit of summer off. I think Madness Dale could make up into a nice horse. Do I think she'll win the Triumph? No, I don't think so. I think she is probably going to need a lot more time, Madness Dale. But what I can say is that he looks like a horse who will take a big step forwards. So there's every chance that in a year or so's time, he could easily be 130, 140 rated kind of handicap hurdle prospect if they don't go chasing.
Okay. So definitely want to proceed with caution with early on, but a decent long-term prospect going forward. Right. The second of the Rich Ritchie horses to talk about, Rich and Susanna Ritchie, I should say, is Manita. Now, this is a horse that has form that ties him at one that I think you're going to be pretty excited about later on, the highly regarded Mangala for Nicky Henderson. But before we get to that horse, let's talk about Manita. Why has this horse made it to your list?
Well, she's got to be on the list because I think that the race she ran in March, the Pre-Auricula, which is the first of the fillies races at Auteuil, is going to be one of the key races of the season. I can already say that with some confidence because the winner is with Nicky Henderson that we'll come to in a little bit. Now, we're going to pretend that the third place Donatella isn't in there because she pulled up on her next 2 starts. Let's pretend she didn't run. But the 4th place horse is the key. Olga de Kiev is now rated 146 or 73 kilos. She's won 2 grade 3 hurdles since. Now, on the day, Olga de Kiev was very eye-catching. Ridden out the back, given an education, came steaming through when it was all too late. But that piece of form is very strong. And Manita really travelled as far as the last. Got a little bit tired in the closing stages. But I thought it was also interesting that her connection, Janik Vereen, had her in to run again in April in the Prix-Champereau, and she was sold in between. So they've obviously looked at that form and decided this is a filly we want to go and get. I really like Manita. I think she should have strengthened up over the summer. You know, you've always got to be looking at this and thinking, where are they going to go with this horse? Well, the fact that she's still a novice is in her favour. So they've got time if they want to give it to her, but you'd like to think they'd at least try her over hurdles again as a 3-year-old and see what they can do. But I think she's going to really improve. And I like looking at the fillies because they're going to get £7. So if nothing else, in a 3-year-old hurdle, she's going to get £7. She looks the type to me that will win one of those 3-year-old juveniles in kind of December time. I think there's one at Fairy House, one at Punchestown, a few others. And then they will probably roll the dice and throw her in the spring juvenile. But I think she's good enough at least to run in the spring juvenile because I really think her debut form was good and she really travelled nicely, just got a little bit tired. The fact she was sold in between and the way the form's worked out since, this is a good horse. This is a good horse. And I think they must at this stage be thinking we're going to get a triumph run out of her at least. So
Lossiemouth was obviously very unlucky in the spring juvenile, then goes and wins the Triumph Hurdle. Gala Marceau was the beneficiary of her being unlucky, and Cargizi won the race as well. So clearly Willie Mullins not afraid to go with juvenile fillies for the spring juvenile and indeed for the Triumph Hurdle as well. You think she's going to be in that kind of bracket?
I think she will definitely run in the spring juvenile. And that'll be where they decide, what are we? She's not the biggest, so I don't think this is not the kind of horse that's likely to end up being a sort of Gaelic Warrior, Fred Winter plot. She's not the biggest. I don't think that rough and tumble will suit her. But I think she showed more than enough to suggest she's going to win a 3-year-old maiden hurdle somewhere. And if she does that, where are they going to go? They may as well go to the spring juvenile, and then if it doesn't work out, you can make another plan. But I think she'll end up in that race. I think of the Richie ones, I think she's better than Madness Dell at this stage. And I think she's the more likely to make up into the juvenile hurdler. In 18 months' time, Madness Dell might have well improved past her. But I think Manita's a strong travelling juvenile filly, and that's always going to make her dangerous.
There's also something very strange about the Fred Winter. Willie Mullins can't win it. Everyone goes on about his record with handicap chasers at the Cheltenham Festival. I'm more interested in, he has all this firepower in the juvenile hurdling division. Horses get beaten in the Fred Winter and then they come out and win a Grade 1 at Aintree afterwards. It's just strange. Maybe they're carrying too much weight. I don't know. But for a man who dominates the Triumph Hurdle the way he does and is a genius, it's interesting. That
it's also because, and I'll word this carefully, Willie doesn't do this so much. But there are certain other Irish trainers who, I know what their horses don't always run on their merits before they get to the Fred Winter, shall we say.
You should take that back. You're a disgrace. You're only in the bottom of the barrel now. Come out with that sort of a statement.
Whatever you're suggesting. How dare you?
What I'm suggesting is, I think, entirely accurate. That, horses can't surely improve £14 just because they're running in a different country. Surely horses improve £14 for the application of money and decent prize pot.
Yeah.
So
improve for the application of cash.
Exactly. I think Willie starts the season thinking, I've got 15, 20 juveniles here. I'm going to aim them all at the Triumph Hurdle and we'll see where we are halfway. Whereas I think other trainers take the view, Willie's aiming 20 at the Triumph Hurdle. I can't beat him. So this lad, we're going to go quiet run, 124, 10 stone 8 in the Fred Winter, bang. And that's fine. I totally get that because I think history has shown the horses that win the Fred Winter would not have won the Triumph. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
But I also think this is part of the problem with having a juvenile handicap hurdle. It's very similar to having a nursery handicap on the flat. If you're not good enough to win a graded juvenile race, you've got no option but to aim at that one. So it is the game. I don't think Willie's overly bothered. I'm not sure he's losing too much sleep at night. Going, I just can't win the Boodles, damn it. I just pushed my Grand National trophies out the way. I want the Fred Winter trophy right in the centre of the match.
Who cares about the Breeders' Cup turf when you can win the Fred Winter juvenile handicap hurdle?
Exactly. Yeah, and when I have to tell Patrick he's got to get down to 10 stone 3, I just can't have a ride.
Hey, Paddy,
who cares?
Get yourself in the sauna that you're not allowed to use on a race course and on an exercise bike constantly. I put in your comment to Google Translate and it came back with, the problem is Willie Mullins actually tries with his horses. That's not good.
But that's also, if you think about, and the obvious example is one that's always going to hurt, which is Gaelic Warrior.
Oh,
And if you look at how ridiculously well handicapped Gaelic Warrior was, regardless of the track and the trip, he must have had 20, 25 pounds in hand that day, and he still couldn't win it because Brazil was better handicapped than he was. And I think Willie probably looked at that and thought, if I can't win this with a multiple Grade 1 winner, why am I going to bother? It's not a concern for me. I'm sure he'll have some runners in it, but I don't think Willie at any point until 3 weeks before Cheltenham even thinks about this.
Yeah,
he's thinking, we're going to have the triumph. Because last year, he had several horses. Willie de Hall's a good example. He could have run in the Fred Whitmer. And there was a sort of a bit of a market move around February when it was thought he might do. They could have done that. They had loads of horses that they could have run in the Fred Winter that were qualified, and they didn't. They ran them in the Triumph and they finished 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever. So I just don't think it's on his agenda, whereas I think there's lots of other trainers who look at that and think, this is what I want to aim my juvenile hurdler at because I can't beat Willie at the game.
And they're also going to win it with horses that they're not that good anyway, really. Like they're grand Saturday horses that might pop up in a good handicap at some point, but no, not really. Okay, enough of that. Enough of horses trying and not trying. We're going to switch to Mr. Ives for Willie Mullins, whose horse I've got absolutely no data on, so take it away.
You thrown me a curveball there because I thought we were on Macho Man. But we'll do Mr. Ives first. Let's do Mr. Ives. He is a 3-year-old AQS. No, it's fine.
Macho Man is by the same sire. This is one I do have a small little bit of information on. By the same sire as Keita Bourbon, who was obviously third in the Irish Grand National. I think he would have won the Grade 1 at Aintree, but he took a tumble. And maybe that's my pocket talking, I don't know. But he's obviously a stayer. What is Macho Man going to be?
Oh, Macho Man's going to be a Triumph Hurdle horse. Without that, he's going to be a Triumph Hurdle horse. He won the Prix de Kildare, one of the last newcomers races at Auteuil run at the start of October, but it's a really good one. Jazzy Matty won in this race. Gust of Wind ran in this race. Last year's winner was a horse called Live Conti, who's with Dan Skelton.
Class act.
They didn't go to the Triumph, but he's a class act. And Macho Man absolutely tanked through the renewal of this year's Prix de Kildare. Travelled like a good thing, won by 5 lengths. Really impressive horse. Second has been sold. The fourth has been sold. Joe Donnelly's bought the first 2. The fourth is a horse called 4050, who's also gone to Willie Mullins. They really like this as a piece of form. And Macho Man absolutely hammered them. Really impressive performance. I love the way he travelled. I love the way he jumped. He comes from Gab Linders, who is one of the real rising stars in France. He's had a bit of success at Cheltenham. He won the Cleveland Gold Tweet. He's had the winner of the cross country as well, Sweet William. I mean, Gab Linders is a really good trainer, and they really know how to jump. They all score really well. Oh, this lad's a good horse. This is a good horse. If you said to me, Adam, you can only have 3 bets for the Triumph, he'd have to be one of the 3, because the way he travelled through that race was just like, wow, look at this. Look how he moves. Now, look, he's only had 1 run, and the fact he won the race means, 1, they've got to press on. There's no novice status to protect. He won in October. You've got to press on. But the downside to it is just that little nagging doubt that's like he was ridden like a horse that was absolutely ripped fit for the day because he was in the shop window and they wanted a big payday. They got that. Ruby Walsh gave him a really positive mention on a jump season preview when he said he looks gorgeous. He looks like a real Triumph Hurdle horse. I don't think we'll see him before the Spring Juvenile because they also said when you buy a horse in October, you've got to vet them, get them shipped to Ireland, get them settled in, get them used to a new routine. It doesn't give you a lot of time. I think he'll go straight in the Spring Juvenile like Madgeborough did. But I really like Macho Man. I just really love the way he went through the race. And, he is in my top 3 list at the moment until something proves otherwise.
Okay, so when I said earlier on that I thought that Narciso Has could be the most exciting one, is Macho Man actually, like if you're saying he's top 3, how far up that top 3 is he?
Ooh, that's a tough call. It's, where would I put them? I would basically say they should be the same price in the market. That would be my view because they both did exactly the same thing, a really impressive debut performance. And if you look at some of the firms that have priced up the Triumph Hurdle at the moment, one of them's 20 to 1 and the other one's 14s. There's no way Macho Man should be a bigger price at this stage. They should be the same price. So if you really wanted to have an each way swing, that's the way I'd go, is Macho Man. But you have to take that bet on the knowledge that you're probably not going to see him until February. In which case, what's the point? His price is not going to change before you see him entered. Well, so all the time he's not entered, there'll be some clown like me, someone else will open their mouth on a podcast and go, oh, he's doing really well. Or Ruby will say, oh, he's not as good as Macho Man, and that'll just crash him. But I love him. I just watched him run and I thought, this is Brian Bird horse. Look at the way he's travelling. Really nice mover. Like his action, like his jumping, like the source he's come from. Who knows? Now look, he's gonna. It's so hard because there's so many horses who've got this similar profile of one run, one win, could be anything. But I just love him. I think he's brilliant. I just thought the way he went through that race and the fact that they've also, not only they bought the winner, they bought the second and they bought the fourth. Now, if you're buying horses all from the same yard, not all from the same yard, all from the same race, surely you're saying this is an amazing piece of form. Because not only am I prepared to buy the 5-length winner, the horse in second has been bought, and I believe has been bought by Joe Donnelly. I think Nicky's going to train that one. The fourth is going to Willie as well, and the fourth was like 8, 9, 10 lengths back and was beaten favourite on the day. And they still went, no, he ran a right, we'll have him too. They must think this is a good piece of form. I think it's a good piece of form. The history of the race tells you it should be a good piece of form. The time was good. This is a good horse. I'm really excited about Macho Man. And I hope he doesn't disappoint me, because he might do. Who knows? He might have just been absolutely ripped and he was completely ready on the day and we'll never see him win again. But at the same time, you just look at the way he travels and think that there's a bit of class about you, and hopefully he'll adjust to Ireland and get a chance to prove it.
Have you backed him for the Triumph Hurdle?
No, I've had no bet at all for the Triumph Hurdle because I can't narrow it down enough. And also because, as we'll come to in a moment, I'm waiting to see a certain horse run on Saturday.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah,
I know. Hello, shout out David Pipe. Shout out to the David Pipe team. I'm guessing, sticking with Willie Mullins though, Mr. Ives.
Yeah, Mr. Ives comes from the Peltier yard. I put him in because I'm following a horse in France. And the horse is called Mondialito de Huez, who is unbeaten in AQPS bumpers, has beaten all the right horses in AQPS bumpers, is a half-brother to the multiple Grade 1 AQPS bumper winner Camaro de Huez. And Mondialito de Huez looks like a superstar. Mr. Ives finished fourth to him on debut at Leon d'Angers. He was only beaten 3.5 lengths. I just love the way that he went through the race. He just got a little bit outpaced, but there's nothing wrong with that because the winner, Mondialito de Huez, has proved himself to be a top-class performer who's probably going to win the Grade 1 at Fontainebleau in a couple of weeks' time. It was on quick ground. The winner's by Mondialiste, so he should have flat speed. This lad's by Morpheus. When he dropped down in grades and went to Moulin 3 weeks later, he won with a little bit in hand. He made a bit of a meal of it in the last furlong, but he got the job done. I thought the time in the pre-video Rocket Moulin was really good. The ground was a bit softer, which I think helped him. They went a nice gallop, which I think really suited. Now, look, I don't know with Mr. Ives as to how good he might be, but I think Mr. Ives is another one that he might be a good juvenile, but I think he'll be an even better 4 and 5-year-old. And I expect him just to continue to take steps forwards. He's interesting because he's only had runs on the flat in AQPS races. But what that means is the Irish recognise AQPS races as bumpers. So it's kind of a little bit messy in terms of the way it goes. He's got to go over hurdles. Whether he does this now or does it in the spring, I'm not sure. But I think he's one to keep an eye on. And in a couple of years' time, he might prove to be a very shrewd piece of business.
Okay. He was already in the tracker, but he now goes in with a little bit more confidence. And the final Willie Mullins horse is Proactif. JP McManus.
Now Proactif is interesting. And he's interesting because he's by Mars Marvel. I really like Mars Marvel as a sire. He won the Prix Fino, again for Daniela Mallet. There's a lot of horses gone from Daniela Mallet to Willie Mullins. The Prix Fino is the newcomers race, the first one of the autumn season, which is run in the second week of September. Won it by 6 lengths. They bought the second 2, good Apollon de Charny. So they obviously like the form. I just like the way he travelled. He really travelled like he knew his job. He jumped perfectly. got the standside rail, and away he went. The time was okay. It wasn't exceptional, but it was a nice time. The pedigree kind of suggests that he might need a little bit of time. But there's one or two winners in there without it being exceptional. I think Proactive will slip under the radar a little bit. And the reason I think he'll slip under the radar is because there's the likes of Narciso Has and Macho Man in the yard who will have first sue, if you like, in terms of they'll be the ones that everyone wants to ask about. But if you go back far enough, the Dam is a half sisters of 7 or 8 winners, several of which were graded winners in France. It's a really nice pedigree. It comes from Daniela Mallet, which means that Willie Mullins' team looked at this horse before its debut, almost certainly, were given the wink and the nod. It won on debut like a good thing, and then they bought it, and they bought the runner-up again just for good measure. So I think Proactive is another one. He may need more time than the others, but he's a strong traveller, and that's half the time. That's all you need to be. He's a strong traveller and a good hurdler, and he'll be competitive. Proactive should run in the Triumph. Whether he's good enough to win it, I don't know, but he should at least run in the race.
Staying pedigree, I'm told he's a big scopy sort, but if you're saying he's a Triumph Hurdle horse, you think 2 miles would be fine now. What do you think of him long term?
I think they'd have chasing in mind long term. I think they'd have chasing in mind. It would be very easy to look at these and think, oh, they're doing the sort of Madgeborough thing where they're going to buy a decent horse and then they're going to think they're going to turn him into a chase. I think that will happen with Proactive. But I don't necessarily think that Proactive is an out-and-out stayer. Madgeborough won the Triumph because Danny Mullins and Cargeese went too quickly. And it really set up for Madgeborough. He should have gone up in trip last year and they didn't for whatever reason. But it really suited stamina, and that's why Madgeborough won the Triumph. Proactive will definitely stay further. But I think he's got more speed than people give him credit for. And therefore, I think he'll be fine in the Triumph this year before he goes up in trip. And as we know with the Triumph Hurdle, Willie's going to have, I don't know, 10, 12, however many the BHA let him have probably. You're going to have a big field. You're going to have a huge field. You're going to have a really big field. And if you get a really big field, that's great because that means there'll always be 2 or 3 that go on. You're going to get a really truly run race. James Owen's got a really good team of flat recruits this year, so he'll probably have a couple in the race to set the pace up. It's going to really be run to suit Proactive. He's another one. He's won a race in September. He's got to acclimatise. Maybe we'll see him in the race at Leopardstown or over Christmas, or maybe he'll go straight to the DRF. I'd imagine he'll run in one of those graded races at least so they can see what they've got.
The Stateman rule, the Poneros rule, the absurd rule. Yeah, they are all absurd. It's just ridiculous. That's the Willie Mullins juvenile hurdlers. What would be your Willie Mullins 1, 2, 3?
The 1, 2, 3 would be Macho Man, Narciso Has, and Proactive in some kind of order.
Okay. I'm going to be very interested to hear what you have to say about Nicky Henderson, David Pipe, Dan Skelton, Gavin Cromwell, Ben Pauling, and the horses for them, Gordon Elliott as well. We're about to talk about them in a second, but this episode is brought to you by 1xBet, the new betting company shaking things up in Ireland. If you were looking for a new bookmaker to get stuck into, there's over 7,000 betting markets for you to get involved in every single day. There's new account sign-up bonuses on offer as well. Loads of special customer offers too. The link to the 1xBet website, if you're betting in Ireland, is in the episode description right now. You can click it on YouTube. You can listen to it or get it, click it as you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn, Player FM, all good podcast apps, and some rubbish ones as well. Check out 1xBet and all of the incredible sign-up offers they've got for you and all of the great events for you to get stuck into daily at 1xbet.ie. Terms and conditions apply. Gamble responsibly. 1xBet knows the crack. Bet with your head, not above it. You can just click the link in the episode description. It'll take you right there. The first of these horses we're going to talk about is for the other man who's a genius with juvenile hurdlers, and that's Nicky Henderson, Mangala. And so we've already pointed out that this is a horse that's got form that ties in with one for Willie Mullins. So why is Manlaga, or what is the pronunciation? What are we going with?
We're going with Manlaga. I think Manlaga works. You know, think of Benidorm, Manlaga. There you go. So in terms of the way it looks, Manlaga is obviously interesting, and you're never going to get a price about Manlaga. Is that good? You like that? The career as a stand-up is still there. You were never going to get a price about Manlaga because they made it public that they bought the horse in March. And the agent was on the Nick Luck Daily Show saying, I've spent how many 100,000 it is on this horse at Auteuil. I really like her. The forms worked out really well, as we already discussed. Manita was second. The Grade 3 winner, Olga Kiev, was fourth. Manlaga really travelled nicely through this race, put it to bed really easily. Gone to Nicky Henderson, but won a race in March. Why is that important? She's not a novice. We all know that Nicky is, can be cautious. Well, you can't be cautious with a horse that ran a race in March because you've got no novice status. You've got no option. You have got to press on, the same as he did for Sergino. Thought Manlaga would probably follow a similar pattern. I thought they'll find a juvenile hurdle for her to run in under a penalty, and then they'll aim at something like the Triumph Hurdle Trial in January at Cheltenham. By Maxios, obviously Maxios sort of rings the Gaelic warrior bell, but it's also the sire Calixios. So there's a lot of ability there. There's a really good list of horses that he has sired over hurdles. It's Gaelic warrior, Calixios, Outer Belly. Well, maybe not Lucky Max, but we'll include that, I suppose. Di Capo, Chasing Fire, Wild Max, Aramax, Tax for Max. There's lots of really good horses on that list. So she looks like a typical daughter of Maxios, strong traveller, knows how to jump, really good performance to win the pre-auricular. The other thing to bear in mind with Manlaga is, until Willie Mullins turns up, the pool is nowhere near as deep for the juvenile hurdlers in the UK as it is in Ireland. This is a much better year for the British horses. When we discussed this last year, I think I said to you, it's like Lou Lamba versus Ireland, because that's just the way it is. But actually, it's a little bit better this year. But I think as a 3-year-old filly, there's plenty of races to be won. Manlaga is also the kind of horse that if you fancy her to win the trial, which personally I don't, but if you do fancy her, you need to just be watching the entries. Because when she's entered will be the time to back her. Because they will find a juvenile hurdle for her where she carries a penalty and wins by 8 lengths. And when that happens, she'll be 9-2. As we've seen this week, you can win an absolute nothing race and become favourite for a Cheltenham Festival Grade 1. So bear that in mind. But I think she's very smart, and I think they'll surely be hoping that she's good enough to run in the Triumph Hurdle based on what she did on debut.
Is she towards the top of your list of horses for the Triumph?
Yeah, she'd be in the top 10. Didn't look the biggest. Okay. It's hard to say. I wasn't there on the day, so I couldn't really see, but didn't look the biggest. I'd also kind of be of the opinion, as I said to you before, I'm not so sure about the spring form. She won the very first 3-year-old race of the season at Auteuil. The horse in fourth, Olga Kiev, has proved to be a good horse, but she was ridden a very odd ride on the day where she was miles back and flew at the end. So I don't know if Olga Kiev would have beaten her with a more prominent ride. Maybe not, but I'm just a little bit cautious because we haven't seen her since March. And at the time, it was like, wow, what was that? Since then, there's been several performances that have been as good, in my opinion. So I'm just a little bit cautious, but I think at the moment, all roads must lead to the Triumph Hurdle Wills, the Triumph Hurdle with her. They must be thinking this is the way we want to go. And the likelihood is she's going to be plotted round where she could well turn up for the Triumph Hurdle unbeaten in 3. But what she's beaten will be open to question.
Now, speaking of the British division being a lot stronger this year than it was last year, enter a horse that has already been talked up by Tom Malone, and one that we may very well see this weekend at Cheltenham in a race that David Pipe has won before. Tell us about Parchment.
Yeah, Parchment is... I was sitting here in August time when we were first discussing, when we were going to record this show. Oh, let's get Parchment in. That's going to be it. And then Tom Malone opens his big Irish mouth and goes, I bought this horse called Parchment. It's very good. And he's like, oh, you idiot. What did you do that for? Price is gone. No, look, Parchment is very good. Very good. On the evidence we've got, the time figure at Clairefontaine was really good. Normally, I'd look at Clairefontaine and think, wow, summer jumps in France is very similar to summer jumps over here. It's just not as good as the winter and spring, autumn seasons. But actually, I thought Parchment tanked through this race. Really. And you don't normally go down the inside at Clairefontaine. You come to the stand side. He went down the inside, snapped back on the bridle, approaching the last, and went away. The second is a horse called Pourquoi Pas Papa, who's been bought by Paul Nicholls. So he might give us a clue to the form. Commentator's nightmare, that horse. But Parchment tanked through it. Comes from the Noel George Yard. Has gone to David Pipe. I think there's an assumption made that it's David Pipe. They'll be handicapping this lad. There's no way they're going to do that. This lad has got to be aimed at the Triumph Hurdle. He's in at Cheltenham at the weekend. They're hoping to run, from what I've read from David Pipe. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's interesting because it's a completely different form line to everything else. But you've got to love the way he went through the Clairefontaine race. Tom Malone was really confident. I'd be quietly confident that he's going to run a big race if they enter him on Saturday. And if he does, it's the kind of silly scenario as we've seen in past years with East India Dock and a few others. But he could be Triumph Hurdle favourite by this time next week. Because if he wins that trial, he'll have put the best performance in so far, so he will be. Whether I'd want to back him for the Triumph, I'm not sure. But I think at this stage, he's one of the most exciting recruits. How do I put him in line with Willie Mullins? If he was in Willie Mullins' yard, he'd be in his top 5. That's where I think he is. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best because I can't be sure. But I think he has the potential to be very classy. And just because he's with David Pipe, don't think he's a handicap because he's not. This is a graded performance. Everything Tom Malone has said suggests they think he's a graded performer. It's one to be excited about, definitely.
Well, Tom put up 3 horses for David Pipe as very exciting novices for the new season. One is Wind Beneath My Wings, who we haven't seen yet, but really excited to see that horse in action. Kingston Queen was the other. She bolted up by 7 lengths last week and looks a very exciting horse, and that was against the boys as well. And this was the third, Parchment. So you now have 2 ringing endorsements. No pressure. No pressure. What I want to see is the Twitter notifications or the X notifications going mad for the right reasons on Saturday, but proceed with caution. No, don't. Just put him in all your multiples. He's going to win. He's going to win. Gamble responsibly and all that, but this horse is going to win. Come on, David. Interesting to see Dan Skelton with the Johnny Delahaye runner as well. And Harry, I'm sure Paul is delighted with that. Harry Skelton's going to ride. So Jack Tudor's already jocked up. Hopefully he'll run on Saturday. And I would imagine you're right. This isn't going to be a handicapper. This is going to be an Adagio-style campaign. Get him to a Triumph Hurdle. And maybe you bump into a Caluxius. Maybe you do, but maybe you're better this season. We shall see. Okay, second one. Or next one, I should say. This is for Ben Pauling. Mahito de Mott.
Yeah, I put this lad in. I wanted to make sure he stayed in because some people might look at Mahito de Mott and think, he got beat at Ludlow the other day.
Yeah.
And he was Evans' favourite and he was beaten 18 lengths. Yes, he was Evans' favourite. Yes, he was beaten 18 lengths. But I think there are reasons for that. One, the ground was far too quick. Mahito de Mott needs soft ground. I thought that on his debut. He hits the ground quite hard. And to be honest, I think they ran him, Ludlow, thinking we might get away with this in a weak race. He got done by a horse of Paul Nicholls called Treasure Planet, got a really good ride from Freddie Gingle. But Treasure Planet's by Footsteps in the Sand has a sort of flat pedigree to a certain degree. And I think the race in a four-runner race where one of the others unseated, it was messy, it was tactical, it didn't suit. Mahito de Mott now will be written off. People will write him off and say, hey, he's no good, he got beat by 18 lengths, what did they buy him for? He just needs soft ground. Give him a month, let the ground turn, you'll see an entirely different horse. Because that debut run at Moulin was really good. Really good. The front 2 pulled 10 lengths clear of the rest. The horse in second is a horse called Metronomique, who's got an official rating of 142. Now, you can't pull 10 lengths clear with a 142 rated horse, or subsequently 142 rated horse, and not have a bit of ability. Don't worry about the Ludlow run. Wait till he gets soft ground. I really like this horse, and I think he's going to make up into a lovely staying chaser in time. Stick with him. Might not be this year, and I know it's raining endlessly at the moment, but if we don't get a soft ground winter, it might go against him. But in time, with more distance and more time to develop and grow, he's going to be a really good horse. I think he's going to make up into a graded chaser, probably in 2-3 years down the line.
Okay, I'm sold. Do you think that they might just persist with the handicap route with him now that he's been beaten first time out? Do you really want to go and salvage your season, or do you want to go quietly?
Well, the problem is he's already won a race. So when you've already won a race, you've got no novice status to protect. So, let's crack on. Let's have a go. One ball runner, we're handicapped. And I also think there's kind of the attitude of, well, if you're going to get soft ground in December and January and you know your horse wants soft ground, run him on it. because we might get to March, it might stop raining, and if you get good ground, it's no good. So you may as well take advantage while he's got a 4-year-old allowance, get some experience into him. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him go chasing next year as a 4-year-old.
Okay.
That would be a certain option.
Well, it's becoming more of a common theme. We're going to see Luamba do it. We just saw, is it Macho Man? What's his name? The one from, he won the Adonis. That horse went jumping over the weekend, won a handicap hurdle at Aintree. Yeah, he's been the winner.
Mambo number 5.
Mambo number 5. Thank you. Yeah, that's the one. Brain no work good today. And obviously Sergino did it. So, okay. Dan Skelton with Maestro Conti.
Yep, we had to put Maestro Conti in because he's a half brother to Live Conti. They had so much success with this family last year. It's no surprise that they got this lad. Absolutely bolted up on debut at Moulin. Really impressive performance from the front. Hit the line really hard. He's from that Conti family. The third from Moulin is a horse called Bourbon Has, who's come out and won since. Really good horse. Now, Dan Skelton features a lot on the list this year. I've only put one in this show, but he features a lot more than he does in the past. In the past, he'd have had 2 or 3 at most. This year, I think there's 7 or 8. He's trying to take Willie Mullins on. He's not doing it in the same way. He's not buying everything. But he is recruiting from France. He's recruiting young horses. This is the best one he's recruiting. I really like Maestro Conti. Won a race in September. Now, last year they protected Live Conti. They went to Weatherby for some egg and spoon race that he won. And then they went to Aintree and he ran really well at Aintree. Whether they do the same with this lad, I'm not so sure. But the trouble is when you buy a horse mid-September, you've kind of got probably it's going to be January, February before he's ready. So you've got a little bit of difficulty in terms of getting experience into these class. He's a classy type. He should run at a grade 1 at some point later in the season. I think he's as good as Live Conti was on debut. So if he's as good as Live Conti as a juvenile, he must be competitive at the highest level if they can get enough time to get him ready.
Live Conti was really good at Aintree when he was runner-up, and he drifted like a barge that day as well, which ended up suiting Lizzie Kelly and I, who both tipped him on TalkSport. So that was pretty useful. Okay. Irish fans love to sing Ole Ole whenever we get the opportunity to, particularly if, well, it's more about the rugby team these days because our football team is just... Anyway, are we going to have an excuse to be screaming Ole Ole for Gavin Cromwell?
You might do when the handicapper publishes his marks. But there's certainly, I think Ole Ole's got a bit of ability in there. I do think there's some ability in there. The debut run at Clairefontaine was on relatively soft ground, considering they ran in July. Didn't get beaten that far, only a length by Duke de Roche. Duke de Roche has turned into a decent horse. He'd have a rating of 128 now if Francois Nicole brought him over, but there were several nice horses in behind. The way to look at it is the 5th place horse was a horse called Zara Dodville, who absolutely bolted up for James Owen at Fakenham the other week. Dominated that race. Ole Ole is in that bracket. I just thought it was interesting to see this horse go to Gavin Cromwell. Has had 1 run over hurdles already. That was in July. Should have had time to acclimatise. I think Ole Ole might be the horse they're thinking, can we sneak in the bottom of the Fred Winter with this horse? We've had 1 run. We've got to get 2 more in. Don't forget the Fred Winter, you only need 3 runs. Kevin Blake knows those rules inside out. Other people should as well. Get this kind of horse on that sort of list. Ole Ole is a sort of horse that I would never back on his Irish debut. No matter what price he was, I wouldn't back him because I'd be thinking, how is he going to be ridden? Is he going to be out the front? I don't think so. I think he's going to be mid-pack. He's going to make a little bit of progress between the last 2, and then he's going to get tired. So for me, I'd just be looking at sort of thinking, I don't look at Ole Ole and think you're going to be a Triumph hurdle horse. Not at this stage. He might prove me wrong. So don't go, saying it. But he's by Cloth of Stars. He's out of a Black Sam Bellamy mare. It's just this sort of, I look at the pedigree and I look through it and I think, is there anything here that says you're going to make up into a grade 1 hurdler? No. But the fact that these connections have bought him and the way he travelled on debut suggests to me that he likes nice ground and just like the source. Hugo Marianne was assistant to Willie Mullins for a few years, is a really, really good trainer. Really good trainer. On my right shoulder, if you watch it on YouTube, that's Saint Donat, who is Hugo Marienne's Grade 1 pre-Canvas Series winner. Hugo knows the time of day. Horse would have been really well schooled. Probably the type of horse Gavin Cromwell won't need to do that much with. Get him fit, get him handicapped would be my suggestion. And, no one. And if you're having a bet in the Fred Winter at this stage, look in the mirror and have a long, hard look at your life. What is the matter with you? But start making lists.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
No, yeah, but start making lists. I always make lists. I've got a list of Triumph Hurdle horses, and there'll be 7 or 8 on there that get transferred to the list of Fred Winter horses. Because if you start to think, well, they're not good enough to win juvenile hurdles, or they're running really well, but they're finishing 3rd or 4th to some Willie Mullins hot pot, well, they're going to be handicapped accordingly. And as we know, and as we've already discussed with the Fred Winter, you're not going to win the Fred Winter with a top weight rated 140. You're going to win it with a horse rated in the mid to low 120s. Or Ole would be in that bracket, in my opinion.
Okay. Most people listen to the Final Furlong podcast. And for those of you who are listening, when Adam said tired, he used quotation marks. Just to add that little bit of perspective. I'm sure you already knew anyway with the sarcastic tone. But that was 1 for Gavin Cromwell. We've got 1 for Gordon to come and 1 for Henry de Bromhead. Matin, midi et soir.
Yes, matin, midi et soir. Well. Firstly, I mean, I don't know Simon Menier and Isaac Suede, but I imagine they've got a few quid under the bed. They're not short of a few bucks.
Probably a few.
Matin, midi et... Yeah, you'd think so. So the first thing to say about this horse, he's had 3 runs in France. He's a Grade 3 winner. He's got an official rating the equivalent to 144. Those French ratings can be a little bit woo at times. But if you looked at that alone and said this is 144 rated juvenile, so he's already run to the required rating to hit the frame in 8 out of 10 Triumph Hurdles. 1 on debut, that was impressive. He got within 2.5 lengths of Leopard de Burley in the Grade 3 in May. 2.5 lengths behind a horse who won a Grade 3 on debut. People might go, oh, that's a bit suspect, isn't it? But actually, Leopard de Burley has since come out and won another Grade 3 and will probably win the Grade 1 at the weekend. So actually, we're saying with Bryony Frost on board off level weights, he got within 2.5 lengths of the best 3-year-old still in France. Came back out in September, won, confirming the form with Midnight Cowboy. He ran down the last, which put me off. But if you don't watch that and watch the rest of the race, he tanked through it. Got a really nice ride on the day from Kevin Nabe. And at that stage, I was thinking, well, other than Leopard de Burley, this is the best horse in France because everything else has been sold. And Simon Menier and Isaac Suede owned a 50% share in him, and they've cashed in. And he's gone to Henry de Bromhead. Right now, on form alone, he's achieved more than anything else in Ireland. He's achieved more than anything else in the UK. They could, if they hadn't sold, he would be the 7-2 second favourite for the Grade 1 at Auteuil on Sunday. But they've sold up. He's gone to Henry. He's had 3 runs. He's won a Grade 3. Henry's got no choice. He's got to look and go, right, let's look at all the graded races between now and the Cheltenham Festival. Because what I've inherited is a horse who's already proven to be good enough, according to the handicapper at least, to run in the Triumph Hurdle. If you were to price the Triumph Hurdle now and you didn't know anything about their potential improvement, he would have to be favourite because he's achieved more than anything else in the market. So I'll be watching him really carefully. And I don't know the exact figure because it was a private sale. But it must have taken a fair amount of moolah to get this horse out of his current connection's hands. And what they've effectively bought is an oven-ready Triumph Hurdle contender. Really good horse. Leopard de Burley beat him fair and square on debut, and if Leopard de Burley were to race against him again, he'd probably beat him again. Leopard de Burley would be very interesting if David Cotan could be persuaded to run him in the Triumph, but who knows how that form's going to work out. We're probably going to say that this lad got within 2 lengths of a Grade 1 winner by this time next week. It's just so interesting because Simon Menier and Isaac Suede are not selling types. I know there's a dispersal sale coming up and maybe there's something there, but yeah, this lad was sold privately in September when realistically they had the second best 3-year-old in France. and they sold him. For whatever reason, he was sold. He's achieved loads. He's a Grade 3 winner. And when you look at the history of horses who've won those Grade 3s and then come over, they've done really well. Geese came out of those Grade 3s, Gala Marceau. It really pays that if you do persuade the owners to part one of those horses, they've run to such a high level in France that you don't need to do a great deal to keep them going. So I would expect Matin Midi Soir to line up in the Spring Juvenile at DRF, and as long as he runs all right there, he'll line up in the Triumph. The question you have to ask yourself is, can the others improve past him? And at the moment, I don't know, and no one really knows, but he sets the bar. Everything else has got to beat him. He's setting the 140 bar. He's run to that level. Is there something in Willie's yard that'll improve past him? The probability is yes. But the probability is also, there won't be that many. And yet you can back Matin Midi Soir each way if you wanted to at 12 to 1. He's the same price as Manlaga. Manlaga's won a debutante's hurdle. He's won a Grade 3. Work that out.
So as far as I understand it, all of the horses that are in partnership, so they don't just own this horse themselves, they're the ones that are going to the dispersal. And this one was in partnership. So it might just be that. It might be they wanted to keep the horse, but they've decided to just, for whatever reason, not keep that going.
It could be that. I've looked at that dispersal sale. There's a couple of like really nice types.
Yeah. It's all freely available on the.
It's on the Arcana site. If money's no object, there's a horse called Metztar Centaur who looks like an absolute superstar. He's in that sale as well. So, who knows what the reasoning behind it is, but the fact of what he's achieved in France for these connections is really fascinating, because normally we're talking about horses who've won a debutante's hurdle or a 3-year-old hurdle, and it's kind of, they look really impressive, but what did they beat? Well, we can already say, even in a shallow pool, he's run to a really high standard. How likely is it that there'll be 5 or 6 horses that can run beyond the mark of 140 as juveniles? Probably not that likely. He's already done it. So he's right there. He's got to be right there. I mean, if Henry improves him, then this could just be one of those things that was bloody obvious in 6 months' time. But I think he's a Triumph hurdle horse. He's really interesting.
And given the fact that it's Henry de Bromhead, he probably will improve him as well, for that matter. I would just remember the last couple of seasons, what we've seen is Henry de Bromhead starts very strongly, and then for whatever reason he goes a little bit quiet, and then he roars back into life, and you see these horses just dominated Cheltenham and beyond. But just, if he does disappoint first time out, or if he does disappoint in his seconds, I'd forgive him. I'd keep that in mind, because for whatever reason, just keep an eye on how Henry's horses are running. That man's a genius, and you can back his horses with confidence, but for some reason the last couple of years they've dipped here and there. We'll see if that happens again this year, but it's just worth remembering. Gordon Elliott has been really tucking up Mange 2, and this is one of the horses that we've seen. She's a half sister to Imperi Pass. She did make a winning debut, but the runner up threw the race away, basically. What do you make of her?
Yeah, it's really hard to assess, because if you just looked at the Compiegne form and you'd go, blimey, 15-length winner on debut. Well, yes, but the horse that fell at the last, Mary Shelley, would either have won or finish a very close second. Mary Shelley, though, is now rated 120. So you have to take that into a little bit of context. I thought the Down Royal run was odd, but I think it was just odd because Jack Kennedy found himself so far clear going up the hill, and he sort of thought, I don't want to be here, and I want to stretch it. So he allowed the horse to take a breather. That let Wizard of Oz kind of get closer than perhaps was fair, and then Mange 2 picks up again and got the job done. That was job done. Same race Calixios won all them years ago. I don't know with Mange 2, but you got a filly here who's won both starts, and has won both starts relatively impressively. Personally, though, with Mange 2, I think there's improvement to come, but I think that improvement will come when we get some rain, because I think as a Born to See, there's a definite potential that she might need a bit more cut in the ground than she's got. The penetrometer at Compiegne was 4.0, which would be good to soft in our terms. And at Down Royal, it was yielding. So there's definitely some improvement to come. If you looked at her bare form, she's won 2 races by a combined distance of, any distance you like, 19 lengths. Is that accurate? I don't think so. I don't think that's an accurate reflection of her ability. It's an accurate reflection of the races she's running. So there's work to do. Gordon's really excited. I'm a bit more like, meh. I think she's kind of a stone below some of Willie's. I'm happy to be proved wrong, and maybe soft ground will be the key, but I just put her in because I thought the stable tour and the social media noise doesn't match what the form actually tells us. And the form tells us she's run to marks in the mid to low 120s, in which case there's 10 at least that I could name that will have, and if not already have, achieved more.
Okay, so interesting, but a horse to proceed with caution with.
A little bit of caution, yeah.
Yeah, is much too. Okay, that's the list. We're going to get a top 5 overall from Adam in a second, but this episode is brought to you by 1xBet. If you want to check out the new betting company shaking things up in Ireland, massive supporter of the Curragh. They sponsored 10 races. The 1xBet series, which was part of that competition. So whichever trainer accumulated the most points, first, second, and third, over those 10 races, their stable staff will be put into a draw to go to see Paris Saint-Germain against Tottenham in the Champions League. The winner of that is Ireland's youngest trainer, Daniel McLaughlin. And he did it with one horse, Scissor G, who's unbeaten in 3 starts in handicap company, Gorham Park, and 2 at the Curragh. She won one of the 1xBet series races and the final Furlong podcast with 1xBet handicap as well. Tipped on this show on both starts by Peter Michael, 12-1 and 8-1, and backed into 100-30 on the day. So we're going to be up at Daniel's Yard on Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 11th of November. We'll be there on Wednesday to see him again and do the draw. He only has 6 stable staff, so one of those lucky people is going to get to go see Paris Saint-Germain against Tottenham Hotspur, courtesy of 1xBet, the official betting partner of the European champions, Paris Saint-Germain. Also the official betting partner of Barcelona FC as well. So if you want to see what all the hype about is with 1xBet, check out the website. The link is in the episode description on YouTube. You can also get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whichever podcast app it is you're listening to. You can get the link to 1xBet right there. Terms and conditions apply. Obviously, you have to be 18 plus, 18 years of age and over. Gamble responsibly. 1xBet knows the crack. Bet with your head, not above it. All right. Your top 5 of the horses we have talked about, Adam Mills, are...
Okay, all right. I can narrow it down to 5, I think. So the 5, Willie's 3 would be Narciso Has, Proactif, and Macho Man. The other 2 would be Matan, Midi Soir. Oh, do I want Parchment or Maestro Conti? I think I want Parchment. In there for David Pipe because I think Parchment will be a price. Maestro Conti's very unlucky not to be on this list. I think he should be.
Okay.
I'm going to add one dirty asterisk, which is Leopard de Burle, who hasn't been sold, is with David Cotan. It is virtually impossible to get a horse ready in France for the Cheltenham Festival because the French programme doesn't line up. But Leopard de Burle should win the Grade 1 at Auteuil. Were they bold enough to pitch him into the Triumph Hurdle, he would probably be 2nd or 3rd favourite. So if the French runner turns up, maybe. But yeah, those 5 I'd be happy with. I know it sounds strange to be against the current favourite, Manlaga, but I just think there's others that are better.
Okay.
We'll see if that comes true or not.
That's what we want. We don't want you telling us the Triumph Hurdle favourite is right, get stuck in. We want you to be telling us, hopefully...
Yeah, I did that last year like a right idiot, so we'll try a different approach this time around.
Yeah, I mean, just how insane is it that you're coming down to the last... Whichever side of the fence you were on, whether you were with Team East India Doc or Team Luamba or... Much to Jamie Wren loves to remind me about how I was with Team Hello Neighbour. What the hell was that about? How did I manage to end up fancying that horse? I don't understand it. Anyway, you're coming down to the last. You're thinking to yourself, if you're an East India Doc fan, you're probably thinking you've got it won. If you're a Luamba fan, you're probably thinking you've got it won. And you get done by 100-1 complete outsider making his hurdling debut. Gamble responsibly and all that. Okay, Adam, you're back on the show with us very, very soon, which I'm looking forward to. And obviously some great content with Total Performance Data on the At The Races website as well. What's coming up soon?
We've got the Bahrain International Trophy this weekend. We're still in a little bit of flat racing mode, so we'll have that. You'll also find at some point when I get round to it, I've got agreement from the lads that I do the French work for, that from next year, everything that we do privately can be published in full. So all of my 3-year-old notes for next season will be available for free. And we'll probably do that on Patreon. But we're just going to publish it because we had a meeting this year. The lads were like, luckily they were like, we want you on for a contract for next year. I was like, what's that? Sharing kind of my form analysis of 3-year-old hurdles. But they also said to me, let's just put this out there because there's so many people guessing and we've got all this data. Let's just use it. So from next year, you'll be able to do your own study of the 3-year-old hurdles because I'll publish it all for free because I'm a nice man.
I am amazed that level of information is going out for free. That's well done. That's going to be incredibly popular. But I'm amazed you're putting that out for free. Well done. That's brilliant. Speaking of Patreon, how do people get access to that now?
I will share the link on Twitter. I'll put it on the show notes on here. Just bear in mind that at the moment, I'm putting some notes on there, but it's kind of like when I've got time.
Okay.
Whereas next year, we'll have much more structure. We decided to do this in September, and I just didn't have time to go back over the 53-year-old hurdles and all the other stuff I've done and put it back on there. So we put some notes on there. We'll start sharing those. The 3-year-old season gets underway on the 2nd of March this year at Compiegne, I think. But it's just for the 3-year-olds. We're not doing everything, but it's just all I really do is I look at the race. I'll put some notes on there about the times. I make notes on everything I think that matters. And then there's a little summary at the end. But the idea really is just so that when we get to the French recruits next year, all of that information is already available. So you can make a bit more of an informed decision rather than just look at the Triumph Hurdle market in August and think, oh, Willie's bought those. Which one is it? It's very similar. It annoys me a little that we talk a lot about French recruits. And let's face it, I milk this cow for all it's worth. September, October, my DMs are pinging all the bloody time about Triumph and all sorts of things. So I love this time of year talking about all these horses. But I think it's important that it's very easy just to sit here and reel off a list. And we've talked about 16, 17 horses tonight. It might not have even got the Triumph Hurdle on there because there's a load of others that I've ruled out and thought we won't talk about those. But I think it's important to try and have some context of what that form is worth and to understand how the races at Auteuil develop, how the sales work, how the form lines work. Because you can just look at a load of horses with one next to their name, and yet there could be £50 between the level of form they've shown. So that's the idea. And luckily, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years for a group of lads who've always been really great with me. And this year they said, you know what, publish it for free. Stick it out there for free.
Sound.
We'll still pay you to do it. There's lots of things I do. I do second opinions a lot. I'm not a bloodstock agent. I'm not putting my name on a docket. It's not my money I'm parting with. But I like to do second opinions. If someone wants to know, what's this form worth? I can go, here's the PDF of my notes. So this will now be available from next year on Patreon. And we've started it, and we'll probably share it at some point once we've got a few more things built up and got it exactly the layout we want it. But the idea is just so that next year you can look at the Triumph Hurdle. And if you want to listen to this podcast, of course you should. I'll still come on here and I'll still try and tell you the winner. But also, if you want to say, I want to look back at that race and have a look at the form, there'll be a page where you can go to and it'll have the notes.
Incredible generosity. This episode, of course, is for free as well. That's also incredible generosity, I think. The only thing we're asking of you is that you smash a like. Have you done that? Have you smashed the like button? Of course you have. There's no way you've listened to Adam Mills talk all this incredible insight and not hit the like button. W's in the chat for Adam as well. Comments below. We love to hear from you on YouTube. And we don't just say that and then completely ignore you. We do interact with you. Andy Newton is constantly in there. I'm constantly in there. So if you've got any questions for Adam, shoot them into the comments on YouTube. It's just easier to do it there than elsewhere. We'll do another follow-up on this particular topic in the near future, and we've got other horses to follow podcasts coming your way as well. So W's in the chat for Adam Mills. Smash a like on this video, hit the subscribe button, We're getting close to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. You can help us scale that mountain, and then we can start going on about, we're getting close to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So hit that. There's always a target to go for. So hitting the subscribe button helps us with the algorithm. Smashing a like on this video really helps us with the algorithm as well. And Adam Mills will be back on the Final Furlong podcast very, very soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Your support of the show really does mean a lot to us. If you're looking for a new bookmaker in Ireland, episode description, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify will give you the link to 1xBet. Check them out. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
Thanks for spending some time with us on the Final Furlong podcast. We're independent media, so if you like what we do, hit like, share, and subscribe. It's free, it's quick, and it genuinely helps. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Don't miss out. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major platforms, and join us on the gravy train. The Final Furlong podcast, independent, unfiltered, and powered by you.